Ashley Barton, and I'm the 2025 Prize Ambassador for the Hachette Prize for Young Australian Writers. Presented by Hachette Australia in partnership with Express Media, the prize recognises excellence in secondary school-aged writers across the nation. This year, the 15 shortlisted writers were chosen from over 300 entries across Australia. Chosen by a team of editors from VoiceWorks magazine, all 15 shortlisted pieces impressed us with its skill, intelligence, and strong sense of voice. From that shortlist, we selected 3 winners in the categories of fiction, non-fiction, and poetry. Each winner has received a cash prize of $500, while each shortlisted writer has received a book pack, courtesy of Hachette Australia, as well as masterclasses with professional authors. Today, we're presenting a showcase of the shortlisted and winning works. We thoroughly congratulate all the authors on their outstanding achievement. We hope you enjoy listening to the pieces as much as we enjoyed reading through them.
Number 1. When the morning comes around again, the orange sun rays tenderly kiss your window with a gentle warmth you are familiar with. The sun's hands caresses you softly. I do this because you are here. And for as long as I wake up with you, you are loved. Number 2. Everything must be out of love. It is no debate. You make your bed, you cook eggs and toast for breakfast, your hands carry your morning as if love pumps your veins. Every morning, an old lady walks past your door blasting old jazz music on her speaker. And every morning, you are curious to know what song belongs to tomorrow. But today, the jazz awakens the love within you, so you grab the keys, straighten your jacket once more, and you leave the door knowing you must be kinder to yourself and to the world. Number 3. On your way to work, the wind dances your hair and the tree leaves color your path. You witness a father playing in the park with his child, and the birds sing along with harmonies of the fresh wind. There are lovers that hold hands as they walk, because the curves of our palms are almost sculpted to touch the body of our beloved. And maybe this is what we're here for, to love unapologetically, deafening the world with our small, seemingly insignificant expressions. Because a guitarist busks and you stop to observe the generous performance. And so does that stranger, and those lovers and people like you. In a way, we are all connected, and the pink love we display dances and weaves together in the wind, like your frizzy hair and the singing birds. Number 4. Your heart is a puzzle collection of those you have loved. A piece from your mother's soft lullabies, another from your father's cooking. There's a fragment from your first love, and a sliver from a friend whose hug once felt like a familiar home. A stranger's kindness from years ago inspires you to stay sympathetic, and your friend's ambition has influenced the way you handle stress. There are pieces of you scattered on the plates of those you love and those you have lost. And in a way, we are all just a constellation of the people we once met. Number 5. To be human is to taste both the bitterness of loss and still find sweetness in a fleeting embrace. To mourn and still have hope. To plant trees under whose shade we will never rest. To paint sunsets knowing the colors are brief. To write poems about the small, seemingly insignificant expressions of humanity. And if humanity is a tapestry, then every moment, every quiet and deafening act is a thread. So grab the keys, straighten your jacket just right, and leave the door knowing that we are weaving something eternal.
The market of memories. Listen closely. I am not like other trees. The clock is always ticking, and now it does so, faster than ever. This you must know. I am in dire need of a keeper of what is held in the past, present, and future. Below my canopy of emerald green lies the market of memories, a looming structure that has seen more terror than hell, more peace than paradise. The air still echoes with the haunting screams of the wicked and the joyous peals of laughter from the righteous. Memories come in and leave, like bee to a flower. The market of justice and mercy, I like to call it. Here it is the heart that buys you the fruit or the fire of your deeds. Memories, my friend, are a peculiar thing, as is the heart. These two are interconnected. In this parallel realm, opposites don't attract. The heart is a magnet, you see, a magnet for memories. A good heart crowns itself with the purest moments of the past. An evil heart shackles itself in the most wretched periods of time. A broken heart mends itself in the most healing of memories. This trade is what gives the market its mythical spirit. Some days the market is happy. Those days the sky is a sheet of pure blue silk laid across the sky, cradling the golden sun. Other days the market is sad. Those days bad things happen. Those days a mist of gloom suffocates the market, and the wholesome memories flicker. It is awfully humid today. Some say the system is cruel. Others, like I, think not. I believe it is best to not question the memories. The memories are living, alive. They have minds, and they just know. Perhaps you wonder what the market looks like. It looks like what you think it does. For me, I see memories hovering in a gentle breeze, trapped in clear bubbles. The vile ones are clouded and lightless, like a void's fragment. The market's image is a projection of light. It shimmers. You cannot really see the market. It is a presence you feel when the memories tug at your spirit and the heart begs for the restoration of one's moral order. Upon the air is a curse, causing it to darken each day, more than the last. You see the market as you want to see it, the memories too. Right now, I breathe velvety obsidian. How do the memories get there? Well, my friend, when a person breathes their last, their memories escape the cage of a body, just as the soul. These memories sail through the vast sky while the soul moves on, descending into the market of memories for those who need them the most. Death is freeing yourself from the past, lifting everything from the deceased and gifting it to the living. It's what makes the poor rich or the rich poor. Memories are for the living, and the living only. My memories, you ask? Stories are engraved in my grand, looming structure. My worn bark has seen the worst thunderstorms and been pecked at by the heaviest raindrops. Nestled in my hollows are creatures that have sought and been granted asylum. I wish I could have warned them. I've witnessed generations of colorful hummingbirds, entire tribes of squirrels with their fiery tails, and families of pink-nosed sugar gliders come by and go. I wish I could have warned them. Winding beneath, above, and between my roots are the rabbits' intricate warrens, woven like the threads of a tapestry, a truly complex labyrinth they call home. I wish I could have warned them. Yet, none of these things are memories. They are more like souvenirs of my age. Us trees don't have memories. Where you recall, we foresee. We are not human. Still, I yearn to visit the market that waits below, something my form limits me from doing. It hurts knowing that I cannot take because I have nothing to give. What has the universe shown me? Such a question. It makes my leaves quiver. It was an axe. It was an axe rising up, up, and up, higher by the moment, and then it came crashing down, yanked by the force of gravity and manpower. And then, just darkness. A black hole with its jaws hanging open, waiting to swallow you up, to consume you, a never-ending freefall. Cold, lonely darkness. The completion of this act I would never see, and never foresee either. Why? Because above the axe was a canopy of emerald green, and below was a market of memories. So you see, this is why I must tell you all I know. It is difficult, I know, but I am not human. You are not a tree. My vision was there before this axe was even forged. I have felt the weight of this prophecy in the roots beneath me, pressing like rainfall through soil. Now that rain is solid, not soft. It is not smaller, but bigger, like hail. I know my time is nearing. My roots throb like the human heart pounds. I have a request. Let me live on. Let me live on through my knowledge. Pass it on. It is too valuable to be lost, and I want to live. Do it for me. Do it for the market. My wisdom is written in my trunk, heard in the creaking of my branches, painted in the hues of my ancient bark. The world needs it, and I want to live too. Please, I beg you, please don't go. You will stay, surely. A sharp, gleaming metal edge comes into view, held by the hands of those who once sowed my seed. I never knew the dark was so scary.
A reading of Shining Tor. On that January morning of 1939, the trees stood like skeletons, as if something had frightened the life out of them. Their brittle limbs bowed under the shroud of snow, ready to snap. The air was brittle with cold, sharp enough to bite at exposed skin, and was hardly challenged by the first light of dawn, which bled over the horizon like a thin ribbon of gold stretching just beyond the cliff's edge. For a moment everything was still, but was broken by the crunch of footsteps in the snow. Tom moved slowly, his breath curling into wisps before dissipating into the morning, his greying moustache frozen above his lips. He wore a thick, heavy jacket, its fur-lined collar drawn snugly against his neck. He wished he could shove his gloved hands into its fur-lined pockets, but they remained loosely wrapped around the reins of his horse, Buck. The horse, its brown mane dusted in frost, trailed obediently behind him, its paces slow and tired. As they reached the precipice, the two stopped and gazed out into the distance. For 17 years he had taken Buck to Shining Tor on his birthday. The tradition began as a refuge from the nightmares of the Great War, an escape to a place of numbing cold, silence, and steadfast companionship. It was a place untouched by the world of sin, as pure as the driven snow. Buck shifted beside him. His head, which had once been upright and alert, was bowed, his tired eyes drooping towards the ground. Tom felt his chest tighten as he glanced at his old friend and patted his mane. It had been hard to ignore the signs, the way he refused to eat, the failure to run or be ridden, the yellowish tinge to his mucus. But it was the look in Buck's eyes, familiar, yet distant, that Tom knew his best friend was slowly slipping away from him. It was unbearable. Reaching into his coat, Tom took out a red apple and took a bite. He had bought it earlier that morning from an elderly lady who had taken great care to find the best one, and he was glad she did. He savoured the sweet, juicy crunch before offering the rest to Buck. This horse sniffed it before gently nibbling the apple, no longer with the enthusiasm he had years before. Tom closed his eyes to stop the sting of tears that threatened to fall, and kissed Buck gently on the nose, savouring the last moment between them before it was tainted. He stepped back, steadying his rifle, and Buck followed. His intelligent brown eyes locked onto his, still loyal, unaware of the finality that plagued the air. A bolt of pain tore through his chest, as if a dagger had lodged itself within him and been wrenched sideways. "Please, Buck," he whispered, and the horse finally halted, exhaling slowly, eyes fixed on Tom. Tom's hands began to shake. He choked on the cold air that threatened to suffocate him. but it was selfish to let Buck suffer any longer. The horse remained still, and Tom felt a tear roll down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. "You're the best bloody thing that ever happened to me." Years later, when the seasons changed and snow would settle like a blanket across Derbyshire, Tom would find the courage to return to Shining Tor. He would buy the best apple he could find and make the familiar climb to the top of the mountain, even in his old age. There he would take a bite of the apple and savour the bittersweet flavour and the memory which accompanied it, staring out into the cold abyss. He would then shuffle off, leaving nothing behind but footsteps in the snow and a half-eaten red apple.
The winner of the fiction category this year is Persephone by Western Australian writer Abigail Koh. Abigail's story about a character suffering from Huntington's disease is a meditation on sickness, death, and the beauty of life. We were really impressed with how skillfully this huge topic was handled, as well as how well written and engaging it was. Congratulations, Abigail.
Huntington's disease is a rare inherited neurodegenerative disorder that gradually breaks down nerve cells in the brain, causing involuntary movements, cognitive decline, and emotional changes. There is no cure, only a slow, relentless progression. On the 24th of September 2025, the world of Huntington's disease care shifted. Scientists and clinicians announced that the one-time gene therapy AMT-130 had slowed disease progression by 75%. For the first time, a treatment seemed capable not just of managing symptoms, but of altering a patient's fate. Act 1. The hospital waiting room smells like disinfectant and overripe fruit. The scent sears my sinuses, but I don't think it's a burning I'll be able to escape anytime soon. Plastic chairs line the walls in neat rows, radish-colored underneath my thighs, and the clock ticks too loudly. Through the window, the trees are beginning to bloom. Soft bursts of pink and white that press against the window like eager onlookers. Outside, everything is on the move, growing and bursting with life. Inside, everything feels still. That's when I see her for the first time. She sits directly across from me, in the seat by the vending machine. Her hands flutter in the air, not with intention, but with insistence. Invisible strings tugging her joints in all directions. Her head jerks softly every now and then, like a puppet whose master has forgotten the choreography. An actor on stage who stutters as they forget their line. I can't stop watching her. There's something both terrifying and strangely beautiful about the rhythm of her movements. The way her fingers open and close like petals struggling against the wind. She stares somewhere past me, glazed bleary, as if the ceiling holds secrets she alone can hear. Her leg jerks forward like the chair is uncomfortable. Well, they are. But I realize it's not the chair. It's her body. I know what happens to people like her. I've seen it. In the way my mother's eyes flickered too fast to process her surroundings. The way she twitched every time I walked past the door, creaked open just enough to serve as a warning. Sometimes when I glance too far to my left, sitting in the cemetery, I see her headstone shake too. A nurse calls her name. She rises with effort, limbs negotiating with gravity. I don't help her. I don't know what it is. I'm usually a helpful person. I was a helpful person, but now it just seems easier to sit in my sadness and wallow. For a brief moment before she waddles off, her eyes meet mine. It's not a long look, just enough before her rapid blinking returns. A quiet acknowledgement, as though we share a language neither of us has chosen to learn. That language has a specific alphabet, a certain order of letters. Your body moves without your permission. Your mind doesn't either. And when, at last, you provide mercy for your limbs, they turn to stone against your will. You stop planning for the future, thinking ahead. You get irritated too easily to be completely there. You become a marionette. Am I a marionette? When my name is called, I stand too quickly. I've grown more wary of every movement that I make. My right hand shakes. A small tremor, barely there. Still, it's enough to make me clench my fist and shove it into my pocket. The movement is intentional, but I don't know when the moment will come where it won't be. The doctor's office smells drearier than the waiting room. At least there's people, albeit a few there. Here, it's only me and the doctor, and the elephant in a room with a trunk resting atop my head. If I listen up closely enough, I can probably hear sobbing from the same bed I sit on. Picture someone with their head buried in their hands, wailing. If I cried until the water left my body, would my tears carry the disease away? There are charts on the wall with parts of the brain colored in soft blues and pinks. Gentle, like the news every patient receives in this room is anything of the sort. I can tell the difference between each chart even without the gold, all capitals labeling of healthy brain and affected brain. He talks about symptoms, progression, options. Words like court light and genetic confirmation float around the room. I nod as if I'm listening, like what he's saying changes anything. Then I ask questions, one after another. How long? How fast? What now? The words rush between them like water down a drain. I just want to prove I heard him, not intending to actually find out how to prevent this. I don't understand. I look healthy. I feel healthy. So why am I not healthy? The trees sway in the wind. Buds cling to their branches, not yet flowers, but on their way. To bloom is their fate. To die is mine. Act 2. The air is thick and gold, pressing down on the hospital like a heavy, warm hand. The waiting room remains. Plastic chairs, white walls, the deafening clock. I pretend to bury my nose into a magazine like my heart doesn't palpitate loudly in my chest, like I want to be here. But when I give up on seeing the thin, tan, blonde, lively models showing off vivacious dresses on every glazed page, my eyes catch on someone. She's there again, the woman in the seat by the vending machine. Her movements are sharper now, less like petals and more like the fierce rush of summer wind through overgrown fields. Her head jerks from side to side, and her feet shuffle restlessly against the floor. A nurse places a cup of water in her hands, but her fingers spasm and spill half of it down her front. No one flinches. It's routine. I don't help her clean up. I haven't been helpful for a while. By now, I've learned the routine. Arrive early, sit, wait for my name to be called. The same words I used every visit. Chorea. Progression. Neurodegeneration. I'm beginning to wonder if the doctor's is playing a prank on me, repeating the same terms like a broken record until I look at the lamp across the room and realize it curves weirdly. It would be heaven if this was a dream. It's hell in reality. I wonder if I would be happier to not know about my diagnosis at all. To die without knowing what was afflicting me. That was probably why I avoided treatment until now. Locked myself up at home and hoped that in the darkness I would be blind. I stretch my fingers out in front of me. They twitch. My wrists feel loose, as if they're not sure they want to listen to me anymore. My reaction time is slower, I was told last visit. I didn't panic then. I don't panic now. Maybe it's because I've already expected it.
Daring defiance or cowardly compliance. With overcoats draped over hunched shoulders, with tie leather shoes marching in uniform cadence, with blank expressions reflecting the empty hum of fluorescent lit offices, the subdued procession moves through a city bathed in sepia. The streets, once vibrant arteries of life, are now tinged with the dull monotony of compliance, washed out hues of brown and yellow, the colour of something faded, something yearning defiance. Yet, in the sea of indistinct figures within John Brack's Collins Street, 5 p.m., we do not find a rallying cry, nor the spark of rebellion flickering behind their glassy eyes. For long gone is the roar of the people, the fervour of change surging through the streets in an unrelenting tide. Defiance is absent, drowned beneath the dull monotony of routine. Step, 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 until every trace of dissent is worn smooth by the pavement. They move as one, yet they are not together. I move with them, yet I am alone.
The defiance to resist is buried under the streets of Melbourne that stretch out before me in dull ochre and smog-stained beige, a city fading into itself. Decades pass, yet the figures remain. The suits shift from wool to polyester. The hats disappear. The street signs change. But the shuffle of weary bodies endures. The path remains the same. The silence, the compliance, the acquiescence, it all lingers. Brack's 1950s march of office workers dissolves into the next generation, and the next, until we arrive here, in an Australia where routine has not only endured, but has been embraced as an identity. The defiance to break the cycle arose with each passing decade, and the sepia world remains, untouched, unmoved. 18 years old, ballot papers in hand, and I am one of them, a figure in the procession, a body in motion, following the path laid before me because that is simply what is done. Doesn't matter who you vote for, nothing ever changes. So why fight? Why defy? Why pretend that my voice, any voice, holds weight when the world trudges forward indifferent? Defiance is dismissed as naivety, as idealism, as something lost in time. Scott Morrison called us quiet Australians in 2019, a title worn like a badge of honour. Those who don't disrupt, who don't march, who don't demand. And he was right. The climate strikes came, and yet new coal projects were approved. The Voice referendum promised progress, and yet it crumbled under indifference, misinformation, and a refusal to listen. Even wage theft scandals, from 7-Eleven to Coles to universities, barely raised a murmur before vanishing into the news cycle. Protest in Australia doesn't fail loudly, it fades silently, swallowed by the machinery of routine. The defiance to speak is slowly replaced by the weariness of futility. But protest is not failing on its own. Protest is being smothered, being rebranded as disruption, as recklessness, as something to be controlled. Those who march are corralled by police, those who block roads are arrested, and those who demand better are met not with conversation, but with condemnation. The election looms a mere 2.5 months away, but the silence is deafening. No frenzied discourse, no desperate urgency, just static. The sepia world tightens its grip, draining even the thought of resistance. ABC News headlines such as "The Race to Define Peter Dutton Gets Dirty," March 1st, 2025, and "Minority Government Looms, but who'll lead it, and for how long?" February 24th, 2025, rather than inspiring defiance or demanding accountability, seem to lull the public into a state of passive consumption. The media landscape is saturated with narratives that neither embolden nor challenge, but instead discourage meaningful discourse, maintaining a comfortable status quo. In this environment, it takes courage to defy the inertia of apathy, yet too often, protest is met with dismissal, its fervour wilting under the weight of indifference. To accept this is to be complicit. To watch in silence is to be cowardly. The democracy we cling to, the protests we pretend still wield power, have faded into a kind of sepia-toned illusion, washed out and yellowing at the edges. Democracy in Australia is not merely sick, it is being strangled. Protest in Australia is not merely failing, it is being suppressed. And perhaps, most of all, defiance in Australia is not merely fading, it is being dismantled. Yet still, I remember. I remember that to remain silent when protest is warranted is cowardly. I remember that injustice does not simply fade because we choose to ignore it. I remember the countless individuals who refused to be silenced, who chose to fight even when the odds were insurmountable. Their defiance did not waver, even when the world tried to strip it away. And suddenly, a crack in the sepia, a thread of colour, a streak of something untamed. I remember Chanel Contos standing alone as she exposed the silent epidemic of sexual violence in Australian schools, her petition forcing a nation to confront its own complacency. I remember how she refused to be discouraged, to be cowardly, how her voice carried beyond private school walls, beyond the margins of polite conversation, igniting a movement that demanded consent education and systemic reform. I remember how she fought for the very privilege I now hold in my hands, so I could stand here and wonder whether my vote even matters. Her resistance did not rely on immediate victory, but on unwavering persistence. And perhaps that is the point. Not victory in a single moment, but resistance in the face of inertia. Defiance is choosing to fight, even when the battle appears insurmountable. For now we march, step, 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 down the same road, the same street, the same well-worn path, to the polling booths, into curtained stalls, hands hovering over 2 slips of paper, the ritual unchanged. Red or blue, blue or red. The cycle repackaged, dusted off, and sold to us again, like choice wrapped in inevitability. We pretend this is power. We pretend this is change. Yet defiance is not choosing between two predetermined options. It is daring to demand something better. But what if one day someone steps out of line? What if one person stops walking and then another? What if instead of trudging forward, heads down, eyes glazed, we look up? What if defiance is remembering that history is shaped not by those who accept the world as it is, but by those who defy
The days I forgot the sky was blue. There are some days where everything feels heavy. Not heavy in the same way that you can take a scale and weigh it, but heavy in the way that smoke fills the room slowly, silently, and suffocating. It creeps into the little cracks and settles in the corners of your mind, until even the act of breathing becomes a challenge. Some days, this is what it feels like. At night, when the house is quite sleepy and quiet, I can still hear my parents yelling. It echoes through the little walls and ceilings of our split-level house. Their voices float out from their room, down the hallway like smoke from a fire. Sharp, bitter, heavy. And every shout feels like another layer of ash falls and settles all around me. I know that problems are not my problems, but there's always a little voice in my head reminding me there's maybe my problems. Or maybe if I were just a little better, or a little quieter, or a little smarter, a little less difficult, there would not be so many calls against each other from one to each other. Isn't it crazy how guilt becomes your second language? You start thinking it before you can even talk, until it takes up your entire mindset. Chapter 1. The sky used to be blue. There was a time when mornings were my favorite time. As a kid, I would run barefoot outside in my backyard to chase the light on my grass. Everything felt light. It was almost as if I could breathe in clean air. But then, at some point, the air became tense and took on weight. Fighting became more constant. My chest as well figuratively got tighter. By the time I got to year 8, I would wake up every day with a knot in my stomach, just waiting for the day to be derailed. Mom and Dad would already be in the kitchen with their voices low, but poking at jabbing at one another, either with their words or with the sort of stares that just screamed, "I hate you." The smell of burnt toast lay thick with contention that I could have choked on. I would grab my stuff, mumble goodbye, and escape out the door before the fire ignited again. At school, nobody would ever know. I laughed in all the right places and all of the times I was supposed to. I smiled for pictures. I pretended that the smoke was not following me from home to the classroom to the locker. That's when Kobe was starting to notice. "You haven't said much this afternoon," he said, kicking at the gravel next to the canteen. "Just tired," I explained. He nodded slowly, looking me over. "You say that a lot." I looked away. I didn't want him to see the truth, which was that sometimes being alive felt like walking in smoke. You can't see where you are going, and every breath is a little painful. Chapter 2. Quiet between fights. There's a silence that is not a sign of calm. It's the breath before the next blast. Lying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, I would count the seconds between raised voices. The walls would rattle with every round of shouting about money, work, each other, and about me. Always back to me. One evening I heard Mom scream, "You think he doesn't notice? He hears everything." Dad replies, "He doesn't care." That one was a shot of smoke right to the throat. No signal, no clue. There, my bud. I pushed my pillow to my ears, but it did not matter. You cannot block people you love from falling apart. I really started to wonder if their fighting was the price I paid for their existence, or if it was my existence that made the air plain, thick, and rotten. I skipped breakfast in the morning. It was noticeable that I did not look at either of them. Kobe found me behind the gym, where I was alone. "Bad night," he said quietly. He had a sympathetic look on his face as he sat next to me. My parents used to fight. I thought it was my fault. For years I blamed myself for the burning fire that was their marriage. I said. But deep down, I didn't believe him. It felt like my fault. I mean, smoke doesn't just engulf a house. Something has to ignite the fire. Chapter 3. The days blurred together. Depression doesn't just hit you all at once. It seeps in slowly, like fog creeping in over what we know, until you can't remember what the world looked like before it got there. I stopped going to soccer practice. My academic performance plummeted. On certain days, I had a challenging time summoning the will to simply get out of bed. I began to feel that the pressure on my chest rendered whatever I was doing pointless, and there was no escape from the hurt I caused myself. The fog thickened. I spent my days lying on my back and focusing my eyes on the ceiling. My thoughts always felt like they were swirling like ash. Other times I would think about disappearing, but not because I wanted to die, but just wanting the hurting to end, the noise, the guilt, the performance. One night, Kobe texted, "Hey dude, we've been off for a bit. Wanna hang tomorrow?" I just stared at my phone. I wanted to say yes. I just felt I would never leave my room. I didn't respond. Anyway, he came over. He knocked on my window with that ridiculous grin of his. You are not getting out of today." We went to the park and sat on the swings, like we used to as kids. He rambled about random songs, memes, and a teacher we both hated, until I finally laughed, a real laugh, and for a second I remembered what fresh air was. Thank you.
I distinctly recall the night the sea forgot to breathe. The wind was silent. The waves were still and heavy as glass, and the air smelt of something coming to an end. I was at the edge of the world, feet planted, bare and cold in sandy gravels, heart suspended between waves, and for the first time I knew what it meant to witness Earth mourning. It was all shimmering. The water, the sky, my trembling reflection there between. It was one of those things that are beautiful in the way that broken things can be, fragile and fleeting and achingly alive. Below that placid surface, the ocean held its consolations somewhere. Every city submerged, each name whispered by those who had no one left to hear them. I so badly wanted to believe in the sea's ability to heal itself. But the reality hovered in the air like humidity. You might act as though it didn't leave its mark, but it did. That night I learned, the planet has memory. It knows each vow we betrayed, each forest we hushed, each river we taught to forget its own song. And in the silence, it remembers us as well, our littleness and clatter, our ceaseless appetite. As a child, my world was the shape of my grandmother's stories. She described the ocean as if it were a person, an unsettled, forgiving ancestor that never stopped returning home. The tide, she said, was the earth, breathing in its sleep, and if you listen closely enough, you can hear your heart beating in it. Her home was next to a river that flowed like liquid moonlight. I'd remember the shape of her in the window, silver hair caught in a windstorm, singing a song that was no one's and everyone's. Every night, she would lay her hand on top of the river and say, "Be good to us." I didn't know who us was then. I thought she was talking to fish or rocks. Now I figure she was negotiating with time. When she died, the river altered its course. It filled up one year, left the next, and when I reappeared, had forgotten to go where her boots were traced. The house was devoured in equal parts by vines and held together by memory. Her prayer beads still hung by the window, dust blossoming on and around them like ghost light. On her table was a bowl of river stones. I took one. It is still on my desk, smooth, cool, uncomplaining. When I caress it, it pulses like hers. I often think that's what inheritance really is, not wealth or wisdom, but the ache that remains. The world I inhabit now bears no resemblance to hers. The sky is buzzing with satellites, the cities don't sleep, and silence itself has become a fable we anachronists sold in exchange for convenience. We scroll rather than dream. We consume rather than breathe. We are raised to believe that advancement is a marathon, and nobody considers what happens when we get to the end of it. But even in this thundering, fiery century, I hear her voice everywhere. In the rain that slants across my window like a script I can almost read. In the odor of wet earth after a storm. In the way the sea resists, refusing. Perhaps that's why I keep returning to water. It's the only thing left in possession of how balance should feel.
The winner for the non-fiction category is A Tolerance for the Middle by New South Wales writer Georgina Lewis. Georgina's personal essay cleverly uses the middle space of transport, planes, trains, airports and stations, to reflect on time, change and the experiences of growing up. We thought this was so well written, and we especially loved the way the author reflects on her experiences with a focus on the smaller, everyday moments. Congratulations, Georgina.
A Tolerance for the Middle. Airports have always felt like nowhere and everywhere at once. The lights are too bright, the coffee is burnt, and no one can agree on the time. People nap on carpet squares under coats. Kids loop around chair legs. Someone always wheels a suitcase like it's a reluctant dog. I sit with a backpack that's heavier than it should be and eat, because eating gives me something to do. These buildings exist only so we can wait and leave. They're not destinations, they're the hallways of the world. When I was 14, I boarded a plane in Sydney by myself for a school exchange in France. The night before, my mum labelled everything with my name as if identity were a problem of stationery. We checked my passport so often it became muscle memory: unzip, pat, zip. At the airport, the check-in desk printed a boarding pass with a barcode that decided whether I belonged past a glass wall. Security asked me to remove my shoes. I stood in socks on cold tiles and pretended to be used to it. At the gate, I held my phone, my passport, my water bottle, the trinity of travel, and tried to look like somebody who knew what she was doing. The thing I remember most is the sound the machine made when the attendant scanned my boarding pass. One clean beep. Permission granted. I walked down the jet bridge and felt like I was walking through an X-ray, every part of me lit up and examined. On the plane, everything had a pattern designed to calm. The safety video, the trolley, the lights changing colour to suggest time was moving when really it wasn't. The seat back screen said the flight would be 14 hours and then some. Then some turned out to be the important part. Air travel stretches minutes until they're thin enough to see through. We took off into the darkness and flew toward more darkness, and still the captain said we were heading for morning. Meals arrived at the wrong times with foods that didn't belong together. Scrambled eggs beside a bread roll beside a square of fruit that tasted like a memory. A baby cried, then another answered like a relay. My seat neighbour took the armrest by simply existing with confidence. The map on my screen drew a red line across an ocean and made the world look manageable. Somewhere hours later, the cabin dimmed. I pushed my forehead to the window. The wing blinked up and down like it was thinking. The map said we were crossing a desert, but it could have been water or cloud or nothing. The feeling mattered more than the geography. I hung between where I'd been and where I was going, contained in a vessel that moved forward while holding everyone still. I didn't have words for it then. I just knew that flying wasn't only transport. It was a kind of rehearsal for every moment in life when you're not one thing or the other yet. Charles de Gaulle met me with grey light and too many signs. A woman at the information desk spoke quickly. I caught every third word and smiled like that helped. The airport air smelled like coffee and rubber. People moved with the kind of purpose I didn't have yet. At passport control, a man stamped my booklet without looking me in the eye, and suddenly I was someone who had arrived. Baggage claim was the same choreography everywhere. A belt, a crowd building, a quiet faith that their belongings would appear, a suitcase that looks like yours until it's not. Mine finally thumped onto the carousel with a scratch it didn't have in Sydney. It felt like a message. You've been somewhere. The train into the city shook like it was remembering something. I sat with my suitcase between my knees and pretended I knew when to get off. Out the window, graffiti stitched itself along concrete walls. I texted home. Landed. The message went through at a time that made no sense in either country. Time zones make you feel like a lie you've told well. At the station near my host family's apartment, a sign asked me not to run. I wasn't going to. The apartment smelled like butter and clean laundry. There were different bins for different kinds of rubbish, and no one put bread in the fridge. My host sister spoke slowly to me, then faster to her mum, then slowly to me again, and I felt grateful and 6 years old at the same time. At dinner, I misheard a simple question and answered with my favourite fruit. Everyone laughed. I laughed too, because if I didn't, I might cry. My brain was a pocket with a hole in it. New words fell through before I could hold them.
Elbows crash into each other, waves to cliffs, dusting up chalky pieces, crescendo into me, and I catch you every time like a dog to a stick. Old time, forever, the hole in the invisible man, music on ways of everything. You sink in oblivion, as a Bronte might say, or your audience cheers, and that is much, much more terrifying. God, devoted to this, acid runs through river, destroying the mouth and the bed, every waking, sleeping moment. She, the author, thinks so what love has done to me, cliched sentiments of destruction of what I can't know, our shared artistry ending us both, you ascending me, God forbid the clouds part, no, neither I nor the heavens allow it, Mary of Virgins, our shared deck, where our hearts did collide, where my hand flies across the page, his, the lover's, stays still, he'd do it without trying, without bleeding, and perhaps why I catch him is the endless, empty, destructive fear of my death.
Hi, I'm Angela Yang, and this is my poem, The Killer's Agent Asks for a Final Favor, after Wong Kar-wai's 1995 movie, Fallen Angels. When you told me to come closer, I knew then we were very far. If I tell you 155 weeks are given by the oceanic distance between hands, his to make blood, and mine to freshen the bed that sleeps in. If I tell you a body such as mine is not a refuge island, but a tissue of light. In the bar, the angel number of take-back reveals itself as a jukebox coin, while Shirley Kwan sings of the very 3 words I least want to hear in the world. There I learn that Mung and Mong could almost be mistaken for each other 2 years in sadness, that there is only sameness in dreaming and to forget. So what of me now to fold towards the center of myself until I fit into the crawl space of beer cans, warping but unshaken, to have sipped away every breath note in the depth of his throwaways with my lipstick mouth. Off camera, I drink until both cheeks turn into the pink meat of a rainbow trout. In the scene where I feel myself, the director tells me to show a new kind of nudity, one that's wholly clothed. My pain beautifully bared out across the widescreen, granularly diegetic and blurring into dream pop. The man standing, not going, paraphrasing the good sport silence into cigarette smoke.
The winner for the poetry category this year is The Kingdom of Small Things by Jiayi Fang. Jiayi's poem is a bittersweet reflection on growing up. We really enjoy its restrained, precise use of language, its subtle style, and the wonderful attentiveness to it in its observations. Congratulations, Jiayi.
I was once a citizen of the kingdom of small things, where shoelaces were dragons and puddles were oceans waiting to be conquered, where the sun was a spotlight and every swing creased like it was telling a secret only I could understand. I spoke the language of scraped knees, of sticky fingers clutching melting ice cream, of bedtime stories that felt like spells, cast to keep all the monsters in the dark away. Time was elastic then. A long stretch of afternoons filled with chalk dust, sunscreen, and the sound of endless laughter at Dad's goofy side and Mum's superb jokes echoing off doors in a home much loved. I believed in forever, in the permanence of cubby houses, friendship sealed with pinky promises. I didn't know that monsters could wear suits, that the world is so difficult for so many that some children grow up learning to flinch before they smile. I didn't know that growing up meant learning to carry invisible weights and pretending they weren't heavy. But I remember the exact shade of blue on my favorite t-shirt, the thrill of a coin in a vending machine, the thrill of whizzing down the giant slide at the local park, the thrill of learning about the wonders of the world. The way balloons bobbed in the wind, while I felt like the center of a tiny, small, spinning universe. I remember how joy didn't need permission. It just arrived, unannounced, in the form of a bubble that didn't pop too soon. I remember the last time I cried without shame, the last time I danced without anybody watching, the last time I believed that growing up meant answers. And I remember watermelons sliced thick on summer days and always tasting so good, juice running down my chin, seeds spit like tiny missiles into the grass as if childhood could be measured in sticky hands and laughter. And now when I see a child chasing a butterfly across the park with reckless hope, I feel something stir deep within me, ready to erupt, a soft ache, a quiet memory. Because childhood doesn't vanish. It folds itself into corners, hides in songs, lingers in scents, waits in the wings of who we all become as we morph into the next phases of our lives. It lives in the way we still reach for safety in the dark, in the way we smile at shadows that feel familiar. It lives in the silence before sleep, when the world softens and we remember the ones who once waited for us at the bottom of the slide, laughing like forever was real. And if we're lucky, if we're gentle, if we listen, we can still hear it. The kingdom of small things calling us home.